white police officer crosses every line when he violently grabs a little black girl right in front of her mother. But no one saw it coming when Dwayne Johnson stepped in, and what happens next changes everything. Subscribe, share this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The sun was high, casting a golden glow across a lively neighborhood park. Kids laughed and chased each other across the playground, their joy echoing between the trees. Right in the middle of it all was 7-year-old Ava, her braids bouncing, her laughter bright. She ran with pure freedom, pausing only to climb the monkey bars, calling out to her mom with a giggle. Her mother, Laura, sat nearby on a bench, a soft smile on her face. A forgotten paperback rested in her lap as she watched Ava play. Years of quiet strength showed in her eyes. This peaceful moment with her daughter was one she cherished. But that peace shattered in an instant. A white police officer appeared at the park's edge. His uniform was crisp, his eyes scanning the children with an intensity that didn't belong in a place like this. Laura noticed immediately something about his walk felt wrong. Then his gaze locked on Ava. Laura's smile faded. Her body tensed as the officer moved toward her daughter, each step heavy, each moment stretching longer than the last. Ava, still laughing, climbed to the top of the slide, waving to her mom. She didn't see what was coming. The officer stopped at the bottom of the slide. Without warning, he grabbed Ava's arm. His grip was firm, aggressive, completely out of place in this world of swings and sandbox games. Ava's laughter turned into a panicked cry. Laura jumped up, her book falling to the ground. She ran toward them, her voice trembling. "What are you doing? Let her go." But the officer didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, step back. This is official business." Official business? With a 7-year-old? Laura's fear turned into fury. "She's my daughter," she shouted. Other parents started looking over, their phones coming out. The playful sounds of the park had turned into tense silence. Still gripping Ava, the officer pushed Laura back with force. She stumbled but kept her balance, fire in her eyes. Ava's cries grew louder, her small frame shaking with fear. Then, everything shifted. From the far side of the park, a tall figure had been watching. And now, he was moving. Steady. Focused. Unstoppable. Heads turned as the man approached, his presence impossible to ignore. It was Dwayne Johnson. He'd been out for a quiet walk with his daughters when Ava's cries cut through the noise. What he saw stopped him cold. A cop manhandling a terrified child? Not on his watch. The energy in the park changed. Parents looked to him. Kids fell silent. Dwayne's walk was calm, but every step said one thing loud and clear. "This ends now." Sensing the urgency, Dwayne's daughters stayed behind with a family friend as he strode toward the unfolding scene. "Hey!" His voice cut through the chaos like a thunderclap, firm, steady, impossible to ignore. The officer didn't turn at first, but Ava's cries slowed as she noticed the towering figure moving closer. "Let her go." Dwayne's voice was deep and unwavering, like a force of nature that demanded attention. The officer finally turned, annoyance flashing across his face. "Sir, stay back. This doesn't concern you." But Dwayne didn't stop. He kept walking, every step calm but loaded with purpose. "You've got a terrified little girl in your hands. That concerns all of us." Ava, still trembling, reached out toward her mother, who stood frozen, caught between fear and the sudden wave of hope that came with Dwayne's presence. Laura opened her mouth to speak, but Dwayne gently motioned for her to stay calm. The officer squared up, clearly not used to being challenged. "This is a law enforcement matter," he barked, raising his voice like it might make his authority more real. "Step back." Dwayne didn't even blink. "A law enforcement matter? She's a child, and you're terrifying her." His words were slow, deliberate, and heavy with meaning. "You're the one who needs to step back." The officer's jaw clenched. He looked around and saw the crowd, phones up, recording everything. The pressure built. Frustration seethed in his eyes. Abruptly, he let go of Ava's arm. But his fist stayed clenched, and his body remained tight with tension. Ava stumbled into her mother's arms, and Laura wrapped her daughter up protectively, tears streaking both their faces. "That's enough," Dwayne said, stepping forward, placing himself between the officer and the child. His massive frame was now a wall, solid, unmoving. "You don't lay hands on kids. Ever." The officer, bristling, jabbed a finger at Dwayne. "You have no idea what you're getting into." Dwayne leaned in just slightly, his voice dropping in volume but rising in power. "What I'm getting into is making sure that little girl feels safe." The officer took a shaky step back, flustered and cornered by more than just cameras. "You think you can just walk in here and play hero?" he snapped. "This is my job." Dwayne didn't raise his voice, but it hit harder than any yell. "Your job is to protect, not to intimidate." The crowd fell silent at his words. "Right now, you're the one out of line." The officer's eyes darted to the crowd, the phones, the judgment. His bravado cracked. Still, his pride wouldn't let him back down completely. "You don't tell me how to do my job," he muttered, more to save face than anything else. Dwayne didn't flinch. He glanced at Ava, now clutching her mother, her sobs softening. Then his eyes locked back on the officer. "If your job means hurting kids," he said coldly, "then yeah. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Back off." The air was thick with tension. The crowd held its breath. And then, finally, the officer looked away. He muttered something into his radio and turned, retreating toward the edge of the park. Dwayne watched him until he was out of sight. Only then did he exhale, his shoulders easing slightly. The crowd slowly began to break apart. A few clapped. Others whispered, still stunned. Dwayne turned back to Laura and Ava. His voice softened. He crouched a little to Ava's level. "You okay, sweetheart?" Ava nodded, just barely, still wrapped in her mom's arms. Laura gave a trembling smile. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." Dwayne nodded, not taking his eyes off the area where the officer had disappeared. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Just make sure you both stay safe." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. "If anything else happens, call me." Laura hesitated, then took his number. "We will." Dwayne gave Ava a final reassuring smile, then stepped back. The crowd had mostly gone, but the weight of what had happened still hung in the air. As Dwayne walked back toward his family, one thought stuck in his mind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The sun that had once bathed the park in golden light now seemed dimmer, its warmth replaced by something colder, more serious. But the tension refused to fade. Dwayne stayed in the park, scanning the area, making sure the officer was truly gone. Just as he turned to leave, a sharp voice rang out behind him. "You think you can just walk away?" The officer was back. His face was red with fury, movements shaky, and his hand hovered dangerously close to the holster on his side. Dwayne turned slowly. His face unreadable. His posture calm, but solid, like nothing could move him. "I thought you were done," he said, voice even. "You really want to do this, here? With all these people watching?" The officer stepped forward, ignoring the whispers rising in the crowd that had reformed. His pride clearly louder than his common sense. "You don't get to play the hero and walk off like nothing happened. You don't even know the full story." Dwayne tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "I know enough. You grabbed a kid. Scared her. Hurt her. That's the story." The officer scoffed. "She was acting suspicious. I was doing my job." "Suspicious?" Dwayne's voice lifted slightly, disbelief etched in every word. "She's 7. She was playing on a slide. What exactly looked suspicious to you?" Silence. The officer's jaw clenched, but no answer came. And that silence said everything. Dwayne stepped closer. Not aggressively, but with a weight that couldn't be ignored. You saw a little girl having fun and decided she didn't belong. That's not doing your job. That's abuse. And deep down, you know it. The officer's face flushed deeper, his rage bubbling to the surface. Suddenly, he lunged forward, grabbing Dwayne's shoulder, trying to shove him. But Dwayne was faster. His hand snapped up, gripping the officer's wrist mid-motion. It froze him like a switch had been flipped. Don't. Dwayne's voice was a low rumble, steady as stone. The officer struggled, trying to pull away, but Dwayne didn't let go right away. Instead, he leaned in slightly, eyes sharp and steady. You've already crossed too many lines. Don't make it worse. Finally, the officer yanked free, stumbling back a step. His fury hadn't disappeared, but something else had crept in, doubt. The crowd had grown again. Phones were up, cameras rolling. And for the first time, the officer seemed to realize he wasn't in control anymore. You think you're untouchable 'cause people know your name? He spat. You're not above the law. Dwayne didn't even blink. He crossed his arms, calm but unshakable. Neither are you. And right now, everyone here sees exactly who's breaking it. The officer's fists tightened. His chest heaved. But his bravado began to crack beneath the pressure. Dwayne took a step back, giving him an opening. Walk away, he said, voice calm but commanding. It's over. For a moment, it looked like the officer might still push back. His pride twitched in his jaw. But then, sirens. The distant sound of backup. Getting closer. The officer's face twisted, his teeth clenched, but he turned sharply and stormed off without another word. The tension broke. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people clapped. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Dwayne didn't move until the officer vanished from view. Only then did his shoulders drop slightly. Nearby, Laura stood with Ava still clutching her hand like a lifeline. She walked up slowly, her voice soft. Thank you, she whispered, barely louder than the breeze. Dwayne turned, his expression gentle now. You don't have to thank me, he said. I'm just glad she's safe. Laura nodded, pulling Ava close. The little girl's face was buried in her mother's side, her small body still trembling. She's still scared, Laura said, her voice cracking. I don't know how to make her feel safe again. Dwayne knelt down to Ava's level, his tone soft, steady, reassuring. Hey, kiddo, he said, a gentle smile forming. You're the bravest person here. What happened wasn't right, but you didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? Ava peeked up at him, her eyes glossy with tears. Promise, she whispered. Promise. The sirens were closer now, louder, signaling the arrival of responding officers. Dwayne rose, his face hardening again as he looked toward the park entrance. This isn't over, he said quietly to Laura. But you're not alone in this. Laura's eyes welled up again, but her voice was stronger this time. Thank you, she said. As the first police car pulled up, Dwayne stood tall, unmoving. He was ready. Not just for Ava. Not just for Laura. But for every person who's ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. That feeling of helplessness, it lingered. The sirens grew louder as two police cruisers rolled to a stop at the park's edge. Doors opened. Uniformed officers stepped out, scanning the scene with guarded expressions, confused, cautious, aware something serious had happened. The crowd had thinned, but not much. Those who remained kept their phones high, documenting every second. Dwayne stood tall near the playground, unmoved. Laura clutched Ava at her side, the little girl still shaken, still holding tight. Meanwhile, the officer who started it all, his face flushed and his composure unraveling, was pacing near the sidewalk, frantically explaining his version of events to one of the newcomers. His gestures were wild, his words spilling out faster than his story could hold up. Dwayne didn't take his eyes off him. Not for a second. One of the new officers, a woman with a steady presence and sharp eyes, stepped forward. Her badge caught the fading sunlight as she approached. "Sir," she said, stopping a few feet away. "Can you tell me what happened here?" Dwayne nodded, voice clear and grounded. "That officer," he said, motioning toward the man still ranting, "grabbed a child without cause. Scared her. Hurt her. And refused to let her go. I stepped in to protect her." The officer's expression remained neutral, but her eyes flicked toward Laura and Ava. "Ma'am," she said gently, "is that true?" Laura stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Yes. My daughter was just playing on the slide. He came over, said she didn't belong, and grabbed her. She was terrified. And he wouldn't let her go, even when I begged him to." The female officer nodded slowly, her jaw tightening just slightly. "Thank you. Please stay here while we sort this out." She turned and waved over the other officers, who quickly gathered near the man at the center of it all. Dwayne stayed put, arms crossed, eyes locked on the group. Their conversation was hushed but tense, and it wasn't long before the man's voice rose again. "I was doing my job," he snapped, loud enough for everyone to hear. That man had no right to interfere. The female officer held up her hand. "We'll handle this, Officer Price. Step aside for a moment." But he wasn't backing down. His anger boiled over as he pointed straight at Dwayne. "He assaulted me. Pushed me back, threatened me." Dwayne's lips thinned into a line. He didn't react. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any shout. The female officer turned to him. "Is that true?" she asked, voice calm but direct. "I stopped him from hurting a child," Dwayne said. "If he felt threatened by that, maybe he needs to ask himself why." The crowd murmured in agreement. A few voices rose above the rest. "He's lying. That guy didn't do anything wrong. We saw the whole thing." The female officer raised her hand again. "Please. One step at a time." She turned to Officer Price. Her tone hardened. "You'll have your chance to explain." Price opened his mouth to argue again, but another officer stepped forward, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Let it go," he said quietly. Price froze, rage in his eyes, but said nothing. The female officer addressed the crowd next. "If you recorded anything, we encourage you to share it with us. You can speak to any officer here or send footage directly to the department." Slowly, people stepped forward, some still cautious, others eager to help. Phones out, evidence ready. Dwayne glanced at Laura, now kneeling beside Ava, gently running a hand over her daughter's head. His expression softened, just for a second, before turning back to the officer. "What happens now?" he asked. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We'll review the footage, take all necessary statements. This will be fully investigated. But for now, I ask everyone to remain calm." Price muttered something under his breath, but one sharp look from her shut it down. She turned back to Dwayne. "Thank you for stepping in. We'll make sure this is handled the right way." Dwayne gave a slight nod. "I'm not going anywhere until I know they're safe." The officer nodded back. "Fair enough." As things finally began to calm, the crowd slowly started to break apart. A few lingered, still watching. Still shaken. Laura approached Dwayne again. Her eyes tired but full of emotion. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I don't know what we would have done if you weren't here." Dwayne offered her a small, reassuring smile. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "This isn't over. But you're not alone." She nodded, her arm wrapping tighter around Ava. The officer approached once more, her tone gentler now. "We're going to escort you home," she said to Laura. "Just to be sure you're safe." Laura hesitated, glancing at Dwayne. He nodded. Go with them. It's the right call. Laura gathered Ava in her arms, and with the officers beside her, they walked toward a waiting patrol car. And Dwayne? He stayed. Standing tall. Watching. Because the fight wasn't finished. Not yet. But he'd be there, for Ava, for Laura, and for anyone else who ever needed someone to stand between them and the wrong side of power. Dwayne stayed behind, watching them go. The weight of the day settled heavy on his shoulders. Still, he stood tall, knowing deep down he'd done the right thing. But the unease never left. This wasn't over. Not yet. Within hours, the video of the park incident spread like wildfire. Social media lit up, clips went viral, shared across every major platform. Headlines exploded. Dwayne Johnson confronts police over child mistreatment. Hero or troublemaker? Viral video sparks national debate. By morning, Laura's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages flooded in, some from friends, others from strangers. Words of support, praise, encouragement, but also backlash. Some accused her of escalating things. Others accused her of chasing attention. Overwhelmed, she shut the phone off. Ava was quieter than usual. Her bubbly energy had faded. She refused to go outside. Didn't want to talk to her friends. Every time the doorbell rang or a car passed the house, she flinched, clinging to her mother's arm with wide, scared eyes. Dwayne wasn't spared either. His agent called, warning of potential damage to his career. Headlines, opinion pieces, endless speculation. But Dwayne didn't care. This wasn't about his name. It was about doing the right thing. Period. Still, the noise was deafening. He reached out to Laura. This storm will pass, he told her gently over the phone. But while it's here, I want to make sure you two are okay. Laura hesitated. She's not herself, she admitted. She's scared all the time. I don't know how to help her feel safe again. There was a pause. Then Dwayne said, let me come by. Maybe I can talk to her. Show her she's not alone. Later that afternoon, he showed up. Inside, Ava was curled up on the couch, clutching a stuffed animal. She looked up, cautious, unsure, as Dwayne entered. He crouched beside her, his voice gentle. Hey, Ava, he said, smiling softly. Remember me? She nodded, barely. Her eyes flicked to her mom for reassurance. Laura nodded back. You know, Dwayne continued, when I saw what was happening, I couldn't just walk away. What that man did wasn't okay. But you were brave. Braver than a lot of adults I know. A flicker of something, pride, passed through Ava's eyes. I was, she asked quietly. Dwayne smiled. Absolutely. And you're not alone. There are so many people who think you're amazing. And they're all rooting for you. Really? Really, he said, his voice firm. And if you're ever scared, I want you to remember, there are people like me. And like your mom. And we've got your back. Ava's shoulders relaxed a little. She even managed a small, timid smile. Laura watched with tears in her eyes. Dwayne had a way of showing strength without raising his voice. Of giving comfort just by being present. Over the next few days, the video kept sparking conversation. Advocacy groups picked up the story. Community leaders spoke out. Protests formed. Signs went up. People demanded justice, not just for Ava, but for every family who had faced something similar. Dwayne found himself at the center of something much bigger than a single confrontation. He hadn't planned to lead a movement. But now, he couldn't walk away. And slowly, Ava began to heal. Laura and Dwayne helped her take small steps. They brought her to community events where she met other kids with similar stories. Her spark, though fragile, started to return. But not everything was healed. The officer, now identified publicly as Officer Price, remained defiant. He went on record, defending his actions. Said he was just doing his job. Said Dwayne had interfered. His words only fanned the flames. Public anger surged. Demands for his dismissal grew louder. Dwayne met with Laura again. This time, with purpose. "We need to keep this going," he told her. "This isn't just about that day in the park. It's about making sure no one else has to go through it." Laura hesitated. "I just want Ava to feel safe," she said quietly. "She will," Dwayne promised. "Because of what you're doing, a lot of other kids will too." The story had taken on a life of its own. It wasn't just about Laura, or Ava, or even Dwayne. It had become a symbol of courage, of accountability, of change. And it all started with one moment, one decision to stand between fear and justice. Now, the air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Laura sat with Ava at her side, holding her hand tightly. Dwayne sat next to them, silent but strong. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. But together, they were ready. The fight wasn't over. But this time, they weren't alone. Dwayne stood steady, just as he had since that first moment at the park. Inside the courtroom, tension filled the air. Reporters, community leaders, and everyday citizens who had followed the case packed the room, holding their breath as justice unfolded. The investigation had been swift. The evidence clear. Video footage and witness testimonies dismantled Officer Price's defense. His claim of just doing his job didn't hold up against the haunting image of a grown man grabbing a terrified child. The prosecutor made it plain, this wasn't about protocol. It was about the abuse of power. The defense tried to soften the blow, calling it a misunderstanding. But the truth played louder than any excuse. The video was shown again. And in that silent courtroom, Ava's cries echoed like thunder. Gasps. Shaken heads. Quiet outrage. When Dwayne took the stand, he spoke with calm conviction. "No child should ever feel unsafe in a place meant for joy," he said. "What I saw that day wasn't protection, it was power being misused. And it was wrong." Then Laura testified. Her voice trembled, but her words didn't waver. She spoke of Ava's fear, how it lingered, how it changed everything, and how she refused to let it define them. Ava, too young to testify, sat quietly, her small hand never leaving her mother's. When the verdict was read, guilty of misconduct, there was a wave of quiet relief. Officer Price was dismissed from his position. It didn't erase what had happened, but it mattered. It was a step. Outside, the media swarmed. Laura shielded Ava, but Dwayne stood firm, facing the chaos with the same strength that made him step in that day. "This isn't just about one officer," he said into the microphones. "This is about building a world where no child is made to feel like they don't belong." Today is a victory. But the fight doesn't end here. Those words spread quickly through news outlets, social media, advocacy networks. Dwayne had become a symbol of courage. But for him, it was never about the spotlight. It was about Ava. About Laura. About anyone who'd ever felt powerless. In the weeks that followed, life shifted for Laura and Ava. Support poured in. Community programs, therapy services, safe spaces. Ava laughed more. Played outside again. Bit by bit, she reclaimed her joy. Dwayne stayed involved. Visited. Checked in. On one visit, he gave Ava a bracelet engraved with just 3 words. "You are brave." She wore it every day. One afternoon, curled up in Dwayne's lap, Ava asked, "You said I was brave, but I was scared." Dwayne smiled. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," he said. "It means you show up anyway. And that's exactly what you did." She smiled and hugged him. Months passed. But the ripple effects didn't fade. The police department rolled out new training focused on community trust and de-escalation. Advocacy groups gained traction. The mural at the park, "Children of Every Background," under the words "This space is for everyone," became a local landmark. Laura found her voice. She brought her story into the classroom, into town halls, into advocacy groups. She became a quiet force for change. And Ava? She began to speak at school, at events, sharing her experience. Her voice, once small, grew into something powerful. One day she came home with a flyer for a youth leadership program. "Can I do this, Mom?" she asked. Laura smiled, heart swelling. "Of course. I think you'd be amazing." Dwayne, though busier now, stayed in touch. On one visit, he brought Ava a simple notebook filled with inspirational quotes and blank pages. "This is for your big ideas," he told her. "You've got a lot to say, and the world needs to hear it." Ava beamed. "I'm gonna write everything." The park became theirs again. Not a place of fear, but of healing, of laughter, of hope. Then, one autumn evening, an unexpected knock. Laura opened the door, and there he stood. Officer Price. His posture was stiff, but his face was different, haunted, unsure. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said quickly. I wanted to apologize." Laura froze. She hadn't expected to ever see him again. "I was wrong," he continued. "No excuse. I've joined a community outreach program. I'm trying to do better. I know I can't undo the harm, but I wanted to say it to your face." Laura steadied him. Her voice was firm. "Ava's been through enough. If you're serious about change, prove it. Make sure no one else has to go through what we did." Price nodded. "I will. Thank you for listening." As he left, Laura closed the door behind him, her thoughts heavy. Ava appeared at her side. "Who was that?" "No one you need to worry about," Laura said gently, kneeling to her level. "Just someone trying to make things right." Ava held up her notebook. "I wrote about today," she said, proud. Laura pulled her close. "You're going to change the world, Ava. I can already see it." And as the evening sun dipped below the horizon and laughter returned to the corners of their home, Laura realized they had found something more lasting than justice. They had found healing and purpose and the courage to build something better, not just for themselves, but for everyone.